Welcome back. Your dreams are your ticket out. Rand Paul's filibuster yesterday was a worldwide trending topic on Twitter. Stand with Rand was all over the place. And Brad Friedman of the internationally respected Brad blog tweeted us about it, saying Paul accomplished what cowardly Democrats wouldn't. He stood for civil rights. Too bad he won't stand for the Civil Rights Act. We totally agree with you, Brad. There's going to be a commentary on that coming up after this. However, in Rand Paul's defense, how can he accept the Civil Rights Act when he still hasn't accepted the outcome of the Civil War? We'll be having much more on this coming up on tonight's F-Bomb. If you have a comment for the show, tweet us at ViewpointCTV or at John Fugelsang, or use the hashtag Viewpoint, or post it on our Facebook page. Now, in case you missed any of Senator Paul's nearly 13-hour filibuster yesterday, it was great TV. It's filibusters the way they should be done, and here are some of the more interesting highlights.
The point isn't that anybody in our country is Hitler. I'm not accusing anybody of being that evil. Many people will remember Jane Fonda swiveling herself around in the North Vietnamese artillery. Now, I'm not a great fan of Jane Fonda. Are you going to just drop a drone Hellfire missile on Jane Fonda?
I know you've been here a while. Let me give you some free advice. Keep some water nearby. It's handy.
What I wanted to do for the senator from Kentucky is give some small sampling of the reaction on Twitter. Stand today with Senator Rand Paul. Stand with Rand. Stand with Rand. Stand with Rand. I think the technical term for what the Twitterverse is doing right now is called blowing up.
Let me just begin by quoting a modern-day poet. His name is Wiz Khalifa, one of the great American movies, The Godfather. That takes me back to another modern-day poet by the name of Jay-Z.
I've discovered that there are some limits to filibustering, and I'm going to have to go take care of one of those in a few minutes here.
So that's Rand Paul making a joke about urinating. That's Marco Rubio talking about some rappers he'd like to have arrested if they showed up. And Ted Cruz talking about Ayn Rand, who would hate Ted Cruz if she were still alive. After watching that, it's tough to admit that in this case, though, I too very much stand with Rand. Joining me now to discuss this and so much more, our former senior advisor to President Bill Clinton, Richard Socarides, editor-in-chief of thecontributor.com, Ms. Tina Dupuy, and political comedian Scott Blakeman. Good evening, ladies and gents. Welcome back. Let's start with this. Rand Paul spoke for 13 hours. He had some help from those two Republican pals. Saxby Chambliss joined in as well, and Democratic Senator Ron Wyden was the lone Democrat to join this jamboree. Did Rand Paul accomplish anything with a 13-hour filibuster? Tina?
Yes, because we're talking about it, and when we have to talk about Rand Paul, it's usually when he does something stupid, like say that just because the Supreme Court has ruled on Obamacare doesn't make it constitutional.
Okay, but what did he accomplish with this?
I think that he brought to light that the filibuster is broken.
Okay. Richard?
Well, I mean, I think I don't give him too much credit for anything, but but the one thing I would say is that it was good that someone finally stood up and did an old-fashioned filibuster.
I agree.
I mean, maybe going forward, people will not be able to do this sort of behind-closed-doors secret filibuster that nobody hears about. I mean, when you filibuster something in the Senate, you ought to stand up for it, and he ought to do exactly what he did. So I thought it was terrific that he sort of brought that back. But I think that what he really did what he was really doing is taking advantage of an issue which sort of sounds like it's not quite right, just to get himself some publicity. I mean, a drone is like any weapon, right? So, I mean, it doesn't sound right that you could use a drone to kill an American citizen, but, if American citizens, in the case of potential terrorism, what I think the Attorney General was saying, if American citizens' lives are in immediate danger, an immediate threat, and you have to act quickly, that the Attorney General would authorize any appropriate use of force, and that might be a drone. Now, it doesn't sound right when you say a drone could kill somebody on American soil, and the President then kind of walked it back.
Especially Jane Fonda. Especially, I mean, Bomber lasts 5 films, but not Jane.
Well, drones don't sound right. You know why? Because they're not right. They're immoral. They're counterproductive. They foster hatred of America and terrorism. And I disagree.
Yeah, but it's how wars are going to be fought from now on. You can acknowledge that, right?
Yes. Well, I'm glad we don't put boots on the ground. That's a step up. But sadly, and I wonder if other liberal Democrats, if this was. It was the Bush administration policy. Whether I think it's inconsistent that we don't criticize. I'm a big supporter of the president, but this policy is wrong. And let me just say about accomplishment. As a semi-neurotic Jewish male, I think standing for 13 hours with a bathroom break is an incredible achievement, and one I would never achieve. And hearing Jay-Z mention that never came up during Strom Thurmond's 24-hour rant. But this, I really have to say, again, as you point out earlier in the program, this, you know, I wish there were more liberal Democrats standing with Rand, because it's a bad policy. He was right on a lot of things about never-ending war and all that, and I certainly haven't agreed with him in the past, but he was right on last night.
Exactly. And by the way, the Strom Thurmond filibuster didn't mention Jay-Z for two reasons. One, he wasn't alive yet, and two, he was trying to keep Jay-Z from getting the vote.
Exactly.
Don't you wonder what they did in the old days when they stood there for 24 hours
Well,
without having to go to the bathroom?
You don't have to wonder. It was a bucket with an aide had a bucket.
That's true. Rand said this morning, because CNN, being the journalist that they are, asked him what he would do to pee. That's what we really care about in democracy. And he said that Strom Thurmond had some tricks to sneak out of the room and still keep the filibuster going. But I want to talk about one of the best moments in the filibuster, because it was another guy who's running for president against Rand Paul in 2016 in the cage match, Marco Rubio, America's sweetheart, who every time he talks seems to push himself further and further from the presidency. He quoted Michael Corleone talking to Fredo in The Godfather. He invoked Wiz Khalifa and Jay-Z, two rappers who a staffer carelessly put on his iPod. Is this Marco trying to show that he's just a regular guy, and did anybody watching buy it?
No, trying is the word. He tries very hard. Well, I have to say, as a comedian too, that was a pretty good line about saying, "Here's some free advice, keep some water."
It wasn't a good line. He's been milking that thing so hard,
well,
my nipples hurt. No.
I totally agree. Every line he uses is a water joke.
Exactly.
I mean, come on, you can't keep
better than his other lines.
You can't keep using the water joke.
It's no longer a line now; it's a shtick. It's like,
Exactly.
I'm the water guy.
She's
Yeah,
exactly
I'm the
right.
water
It's a
boy.
shtick.
Exactly. Well, speaking of people who exist completely outside of reality, Tucker Carlson. Tucker is on an almost completely defunct crusade to bring down Democratic Senator Bob Menendez for allegedly using a prostitute in the Dominican Republic. However, Carlson was quoted in 2007 speaking about Republican David Vitter's prostitution scandal. He really did hire one. And back then, Tucker said, "I wish David Vitter were a Democrat. I wish he were a liberal Democrat. I wish he were Russ Feingold, because then I would defend him every bit as zealously as I am defending. Not what David Vitter did, but his right to be unbothered by the rest of us for something that's none of our business." Richard, you've been in politics for a long time. Have you ever seen a more blatant example of be careful what you wish for?
Well, and didn't this woman say that she was making it up? I mean, the woman in question
said she had never seen Menendez,
right,
and it wasn't her.
And it wasn't her, and she was making it up.
And Tucker accused Washington Post of lying.
It's crazy. I mean, this whole thing with Menendez is crazy. I mean, it's really a vendetta, and this is, I don't know who found this, but, you know, good for them.
Tina, does this prove that Tucker Carlson is to journalism what Tucker Carlson was to Dancing with the Stars?
Yes, but like I don't call he's not a journalist, he's an agitator.
Yes.
It's completely different. I mean, like to call him a journalist is just, it's inaccurate, and it's something that he would say about someone who is also an agitator. So yeah,
you're right.
he's no, of course not.
I mean, clearly he's inconsistent, but I would have to say it would be nice if we'd be more like Europe, where I don't care what David Vitter did, or what Elliot Spitzer did, or what Anthony Weiner did, or what Bill Clinton did. I think we should focus on policy and what people do and put that other stuff
Fair,
out.
but it turns out they care about what Berlusconi did a little bit. Really quick before we go to break, in a radio interview with Laura Ingraham, Newt Gingrich said that he would be open to appearing on Donald Trump's Celebrity Apprentice All-Stars, which has no celebrities and they're not all-stars and not really apprentices. Wouldn't it be great if all the candidates from 2012's GOP race could appear sucking up to Donald Trump? Would that be the best
We just
TV
saw
ever?
that. It's like a rerun, right?
Yeah, there was just no dancing.
Wasn't that was the last 2 years of our existence was exactly that show.
But is Newt right?
Sounds familiar to me.
Is Newt right? Would it help the GOP brand if legislators were willing to go on a show like that?
It might help his brand, but if he wanted to, no, I don't think. He distanced himself from Donald. He said he's not really a serious person. I think it'd be better, seriously, if they want to help their brand, distance themselves even more. And Donald Trump is a celebrity and nothing more, and they don't need to be associated.
I kind of think a little reality TV would be good for the Republicans.
I kind of feel like C-SPAN turned into reality TV this week. My panel stays with me after the break as I give a hand and then expand on good old Senator, name of Rand. Don't go away. Welcome back to Viewpoint. One more quick question for the panel. When's the last time you were pleasantly surprised by something a politician did, Richard Socarides?
You know, I thought what Rand Paul did was pretty pleasantly surprising in that he stood up for a procedure that I think needs standing up for.
I agree. Tina?
I would say Michael Bloomberg, if you think standing up for 13 hours is impressive, 36 hours by my count during Hurricane Sandy.
Very nice, very nice. And Scott Blakeman.
Pleasantly surprised when Rand Paul said that he believes the president, any president should have the prerogative to pick whoever he wants. I think we should do that. We shouldn't put it up to a vote. Presidents should get to appoint whoever they want. So he was right.
Well put. And this brings me to tonight's very special F-bomb.